What's the story, everyone? Welcome back to Gaelic Games Fan TV. How are we all getting on? It is the 2024 Dublin season preview. We're going to be taking a look at the Dublin footballers and the Dublin hurlers ahead of the 2024 inter-county season, which is just a matter of weeks away. Joined here by fellow Dublin fan, Seamus Brady from On Cliff. We're going to be reviewing last season for Dublin, discussing where it went right, where it went wrong in certain moments, but obviously we would say it majority, mainly went right. Obviously won the league, Division 2 title, Leinster Championship, everything else. And we'll be looking ahead to this year. Obviously, a lot of players committing again for next season. James McCarthy, Stephen Cluxton, rumoured anyway to be coming back in the Championship. Mick Fitzsimons looks like he's going to be coming back. You do obviously have a few dropouts, Davy Byrne, Ryan Maskell. And we're discussing maybe some younger players and some expectations and everything else for this season for the Dubs. So, Seamus, how's life with yourself? Did you have a good Christmas and Happy New Year and all that?
Yeah, extremely good, Aaron. Thanks for having me on for this. Looking forward to this episode now. Obviously, our preview for last season's one kind of aged a bit like a fine wine. It was at a time when Dublin wasn't exactly being fancy, but we still had faith in Dublin that we could kind of get some good results. Dublin's season last year was crazy. It was basically as if you were trying to do a math sum and your formula was all over the place, and then with 3 seconds left, you just shouted out the right answer. It was like the Roscommon game was awful. The league wasn't great, especially after the Clare game, the Cork game. Very, very lucky to get out with the results. And after all that, somehow you turn it around at the Mayo game, go on that run, Mayo, Monaghan, and beat Kerry in the final, All-Ireland title. So it was a bit of a mad year, some bad performances, but end result worked out perfectly.
Absolutely. Big up to Patrick in the chat who says up the Dubs. Absolutely, up the Dubs is correct. It was a very odd year, all right, because I feel like if the season for Dublin was a trajectory, or if you were to look at it in a sort of line demographic, it would be kind of almost like slumping, going up and down, and then all of a sudden, boom, straight up to the top, literally towards the end, because people forget, up until that All-Ireland quarter-final, there was a lot of negativity around Dublin, and there were certain moments during the season where I wasn't even sure if we'd progress beyond the quarter-final. I'm pretty sure I even predicted Mayo to beat Dublin going into that game, which was a little bit mad when you think about it. But at the same time, you could understand it because, Mayo just a couple of weeks ago had beaten Galway, they'd beaten Kerry away, they'd had the league that they had, and Dublin at the same time, the only real significant tests that Dublin had up until that Mayo game were Roscommon and Derry, and they lost to Derry away, drew at Roscommon. Fair enough, beat them in the league final, but I think the general thinking around that was, did Derry really care about that? I don't really know if they did. So it was sort of a strange one. There was a lot of unknowns with Dublin at the best of times, but as you said, came Trump, came good at the end, and in the end, that's the most important thing.
And that's it. And that's it, is that if we'd had an amazing year up until that point and then fell at the All-Ireland semi-final or fell at the All-Ireland final, nobody would remember that year as being one to particularly look back on. You can look at other years, like 2010 is a great example in terms of a year which looked amazing for Dublin up until got beaten by Cork in the All-Ireland semi-final. 2014 is another really good example. Dublin playing breathtaking football through the Leinster Championship, win the All-Ireland quarter-final, and then Donegal just caught us on the hop in that All-Ireland semi-final, and no one remembers 2014 as being one of the best years for Dublin. And ironically, Dublin looked far more impressive up to the semi-final, you could say, in 2014 than we did in 2023. Obviously, with exception of the Mayo All-Ireland quarter-final. It was in the All-Ireland quarter-final, Dublin were just absolutely fantastic again. And I'll be interested to see now how we carry on, because that's one of the main things, is that this feels, or it felt a bit like the Last Dance last year, a very similar type thing to the 1998 Chicago Bulls, that documentary, The Last Dance. It felt like Dublin's Last Dance. Cluxton came back, McCarthy came back, Mannion came back, McCaffrey came back, all the big lads came back. And Mick Fitzsimons now has been playing with Dublin since 2010. He's been in the starting team since 2010. And it really felt, I don't know about you, but it really felt to me like in 2023, in that All-Ireland final, it really felt like Dublin gave everything they had left to win that game. Does that make any sense? It felt like James McCarthy literally had nothing left in the tank when that game finished. It felt like they'd given everything. And I saw your TikTok, obviously, where you were talking about it. You said you feel like Kerry have another level to go up. I feel like that too. I feel like Kerry have another level to go up, and do Dublin, only time will tell.
Absolutely. Tomo says here, Seamus, a senior vid with Darren Maloney. Good video. Yeah, I was chatting to Seamus off air there. Yeah, big up to
Thank you very much.
Big up to yourself for securing that.
Thank you,
yeah,
Tomo.
anyone definitely go and check this out, or check it out maybe after this stream. Farney Fan TV says bit of a jinx. Aaron Davy Byrne and Ryan Basquel officially opted out, and rumors Cluxton has walked away again. Yeah, like the Cluxton ones, you just won't know, to be honest, until the championship. Like Desi hasn't said he's not coming back, so that's what kind of makes me think, all right, maybe he is coming back. I mean, then again, he hasn't said he is coming back either. Like he wasn't really asked about it, so you just don't really know, to be honest with you.
Can't let that happen again, though.
Stephen Cluxton.
Can't let 2021 happen.
Yeah,
this time really can't. Like, do you remember how awkward 2021 was, where everyone was just kind of waiting? Is Cluxton playing?
Yeah.
And you've got Comerford there, who's a really, really good goalkeeper in the net, and he knows that everyone thinks he's only there just because Cluxton isn't playing, and that must affect his confidence as well. But it just hung over Dublin, just this weird thing being dangled over their head. Is one of the best players going to come back or not? Like, if Cluxton's coming back, Desi needs to tell people as quick as possible. If Cluxton's not coming back, tell us as quick as possible, just so that we know what's going on. But I don't think Cluxton is the type to do this. He's not the type to retire, because he very much doesn't like the public eye being on him. He very much doesn't like the spotlight. He doesn't like people looking at him. And like, the perfect example of that is 2011. He slots over the free to win Dublin their first All-Ireland since 1995, and then runs down the tunnel to get away from everybody, because he doesn't want people to be all over him when the final whistle goes. He doesn't want the retirement, the greatest of all time, what a goalkeeper, greatest keeper of all time, greatest Dublin footballer of all time. These things could well be thrown at him when he retires. He doesn't want that. He wants to slip out the door, go live a quiet life. But he just loves playing Gaelic football too. And so I feel like we won't know until the championship is nearly finished whether Cluxton's coming back or not.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a mad one, to be honest with you. Like, you think they would make some sort of announcement if he did retire, like just to kind of get over and done with. Like, I suppose, as we've heard before, like, you'd argue he gets more, he'll nearly get more attention, if it wasn't announced. But then again, look, the last time he did come, he did end up coming back, so it would have looked pretty silly if there was a statement about him retiring and then he,
just do it. Do
back,
it like Andy Moran did it.
Yeah.
Andy Moran retired from Mayo the week of the All-Ireland final in 2019 between Dublin and Kerry. The week that Dublin were going to go for a 5 in a row against Kerry, Andy Moran slipped out the door and retired. Like, that's the way to do it. He should wait until, I don't know, Katie Taylor's fight in Croke Park is announced or something, and then just say, oh, by the way, I'm retiring. And just drop it early Friday morning at like 6 a.m. that he's gone. And hopefully it just gets drowned out by other news.
Yeah, like it's one of them where he won't announce it like Dublin GA would announce it or whatever. They'd probably be the ones to announce it if he'd probably have to okay it, but I think it would be a big story regardless. But look, I'm hoping the fact that he came back last year, hopefully got a bit of a feel for it. I think we saw, okay, fair enough, maybe he doesn't have the range on his kicking anymore, but he's still a top class goalkeeper and still, one of the best goalkeepers in the country, if not still the best goalkeeper in the country. And even it's no coincidence that he comes back and we win the All-Ireland. You know, like seeing something where when Stephen Cluxton, the last 7 championship seasons, Cluxton has played in for Dublin, we've won the All-Ireland in all 7 of those years. Like he's won the 7 in a row, if you want to put it that way. So yeah, like I think you would hope he's got a bit of a feel for it and he'll come back, but we will obviously have to wait and see. Patrick says, are you going to any Dublin matches this season? Absolutely. Be going to hopefully most of them. Going to go to the game on Saturday, O'Byrne Cup, Dublin Wexford should hopefully be a good game, albeit it's Dublin's probably 3rd team, you know, a lot of development players and everything else, but still great to support the lads. Denise says, very controversial statement, but I have a feeling Dublin will lose to Derry, Mayo, or Monaghan in the semi-final this year. Here to hear first. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly an interesting statement. I would say the only teams I would be worried about is Derry or Kerry. I'm not really that worried about anyone else, if I'm being honest. What would you think? Yeah, but Dublin have a good record against Galway. You know, a long time since Galway beat Dublin in a big championship game.
When is the last time Galway beat them?
I think you'd have to go back to the 90s, maybe.
I think it is the 90s. I think it's 90s or 80s. I really think it's a long time.
Yeah.
I know 2018. I think 2018 was the last time we played them in championship football. That was in the semi-final where Comer got the goal pretty much immediately, and then Dublin just dominated the rest of the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of them things where like records and everything else, like it wasn't like it was the same 2 teams that were playing, obviously, you know, back in 2018. But I think Galway like have a very good start in 15. I think outside of Damien Comer, Shane Walsh, Matthew Finnerty, you know, they've got Paul Conroy midfield who's very good, but they've a lot of young players.
I genuinely think Galway have the potential to win the All-Ireland. Really, really do. Yeah. I think they do. I think if Culhane hits fire, then they've got the 3rd inside forward there to go with Comer and Walsh. I just think they completely dropped the ball for some reason last year. I was really surprised by how quickly they just turned from being looking like they were a straight All-Ireland contenders to going out to Mayo in a game that I just wouldn't have expected them to be in the first place, never mind lose. So it was very disappointing. A very bad end to the year. When you look at their forwards, like a 6 forwards of Peter Cook, Matthew Tierney, Johnny Heaney, that's a class half forward line full of workhorses, big strong lads. And then a full forward line of either Rob Finnerty, Damien Comer, Shane Walsh, or Tom Culhane. That's good enough to win an All-Ireland. Killian McDade and Peter Cook in midfield, or Paul Conroy in midfield, is brilliant. John Daly at 6 is class. Sean Kelly, Kieran Malloy, if they get Liam Silk back. Sean Mulcairn, if he's fit. Jack Lynn. That's a very good defence as well. Goalkeeper is the one thing that Galway just need to figure out. Because Gleeson can be got with high balls into the box. He really can. We saw that against Armagh. Kerry really targeted that in the All-Ireland final as well. I think the first ball they got, they booted in high on top of them. Like, teams definitely try that. But if they can sort that out, I really think they're direct All-Ireland contenders. So I'd be thinking about Galway as well as a potential threat to Dublin. Mayo can catch Dublin in a qualifier, like the group stage game. I think if Mayo played Dublin and McHale Park on the All-Ireland group stage, I think they'd be way more likely to beat them there than in the All-Ireland final. But again, time will tell. Monaghan, I don't think Monaghan will be as strong as they were last year. Carl Gallagher obviously going to the AFL. Rory Began, will he go to NFL? Like, crazy story there. Like, will they be as strong? McManus, Darren Hughes, Kieran Hughes, again, all 1 year older. Like, will they be as strong? Again, time will tell.
Absolutely. Yeah, like, and I think I heard Rory Began might be back for the championship, but again, you don't know like what could happen between now and when that comes around. And yeah, like, I think, you know, aside from Dublin, Kerry, Derry, I think the teams all below, like Galway, Mayo, and these teams, like, they all do have the ability to cause a surprise, cause a shock. We just haven't seen it consistently enough from those counties over the last couple of years, so it's hard to really judge whether this can be the year that they can make the step up. In fairness, Denise says Kieran Malloy is back this year, big boost for Galway, but they'll fall short due to a lack of experience. Farney Fan TV says Monaghan v Derry up in the big smoke for league opener. Monaghan's record in the league is mind-blowing. Haven't lost to you since 2017. Let's keep it going. Love going to the big smoke for match days. Yeah, I think he means Monaghan v Dublin there. Yeah, Monaghan v Dublin. So, yeah, no, I think Monaghan have a real chance in that. Oh, and we'll run through the fixtures, mainly because it's one of them games. Everyone's going to predict Dublin to win it. A bit like it has a bit of a feeling of the Dublin Armagh game in Croke Park a couple of years ago. Like Dublin aren't going to be at full strength. Then again, Monaghan, to be fair, won't have Rory Beggan and certain players, so it's hard to really know. But looking back at Dublin last season and just looking back at the league ever so slightly, so fairly good campaign from a Dublin perspective. 6 wins in there, 1 defeat obviously to Derry, but they do go up. They win the Division 2 title. I mean, I suppose we expected it. It wasn't plain sailing. Like, there was a few nervy moments. The game against Clare, the game against Kildare on the opening day, just about got over the line against Cork, even Loud on the point. Like, there was actually a lot other than Limerick and Meath. There was some hairy moments in there from a Dublin perspective.
There was some bad performances in the league. And there's no way of sugarcoating it. The Dublin Clare game in Croke Park was really, really poor. That was a game where Clare should have won. Owen Cleary looked like the best player on the pitch by a mile. It looked like no Dublin player could get a hand on him. Dublin Cork as well. Very, very lucky to get out there. Brian Hurley smacking the post in the last minute of the game, which obviously gave way to yourself and Matthew having that iconic clip by now. When we're 2 very different reactions in about 10 seconds. On top of that, the Kildare game in the opening day, I didn't think we were very impressive at all. Like, there were some tough out days in the league. The Louth game as well, I didn't think we were very impressive at all. In fact, I thought Louth were right there neck and neck with us for ages. Very, very difficult to say in the league, yeah, this is a team that's going to go on and win the All-Ireland. Like, you knew the potential was there if they woke up, and sure enough we did. But you would have been a brave man to put your house on Dublin to win the All-Ireland during the Allianz League last year. Mayo, Galway, at the time, Mayo, Galway, Kerry, they all looked ahead of Dublin. And they really did. All of them looked ahead of Dublin. And you would have been brave to bet on them. But we always knew the potential was there. And we did turn it around. But the league this year, look, if Dublin start off on a bad out run, like if we lose to Monaghan out of the gate, that's a really bad start in terms of then immediately your mind will turn to, oh, surely we can't get relegated again. We got relegated from Division 1 last time we were in Division 1. So Dublin need to win that opener just to settle the nerves. Just to be like, okay, guys, we're right back in Division 1. This is where we belong. We need to win our first game, regardless of who it's against, but we need to win that first game to get our feet under the table and to know that, okay, we're staying in Division 1 this time. If Dublin lose their opening game, it will have the same impact as the Armagh game. Remember the Armagh defeat. And it wasn't just that Armagh won. It was that Armagh looked miles better than Dublin that night. Like, Rian O'Neill looked like no one could lay a finger on him. And that kicked us into a terrible run of form where we lost to Kerry, lost to Mayo, lost to Kildare, and then went down. So you have to be really careful if you're Dublin. That first game, you need to win. And you need to get at least 2 wins from the first 3 games. If we don't, I feel like we're potentially staring down the barrel of another relegation fight.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, and I suppose as Farney Fan TV was saying, like, we do have an inconsistent record. Like, obviously beat them in the championship last year, but our record against them in the league in the last sort of couple of years hasn't been particularly brilliant. Do you think it was a case last year that
in some big games as well? Like Monaghan relegated us.
Yeah, like important games that, it wasn't like nothing. There was a few maybe nothing games in there, I remember, sort of towards the end of the league and everything else. But the main one, obviously, you think of was that one in 2021 where we went down, or 2022 where we got relegated. Do you think Dublin because I suppose like the general consensus when we look back at last year was that Dublin were I suppose, saving the big guns, saving themselves for key championship games. I think with the fact that the profile of the team is like the bulk of Dublin's best players are over the age of 30 now, and a lot of them are, probably coming slow. Some of them are coming slowly towards the end of their time playing Gaelic football, and then some of them probably only have maybe 1 or 2 years left. You still have a few who are, at a very good age profile, but the vast majority of them, you would say, have been around the block for quite a while and everything else. So do you think it was a case of Dublin were saving themselves for the championship, or do you think maybe it was a case that they were underperforming?
I think it's saving themselves for the big days in the championship. I think it's a little bit of both. I think we were keeping one eye very firmly on the future. With hindsight, I think we'll look back onto that. But the reality is that as a player, you don't go out onto the field thinking, oh, it's fine, I'm going to go out here and I'm going to give about 60%. Dublin wanted to beat Roscommon and Croke Park. You can't tell me that they didn't want to beat them. You can't tell me that Dublin didn't want to, bury Kildare in the Leinster Championship. You can't tell me that Dublin didn't want to, really, really put other teams to the sword in games where they didn't play very well. The players wouldn't necessarily be thinking out on the field, oh, I'll give 60%, 70% here because, we'll get through this anyway. And then I'll give 100%. All those players are in one of the most competitive panels in the country. And if they are playing crap, they will lose their starting place in the team. So they're not thinking, oh, let me take this game off. I do think that Desi will be cautious in the minutes that he lets them play. I think we could see a lot more players getting the kind of treatment that Jack McCaffrey got in the championship last year. That Jack was very cautiously used last year. That he played against Louth. The minute he looked like he picked up any sort of a knock in that game against Louth, whipped off immediately. Not even risking it a slight bit. Not risking it at all. Did we use him against Mayo? I don't think we did we?
Against Mayo, I think he might come on late on. I remember missing.
He could have
yeah, I remember he missed he was running straight through. He had a chance for a goal, didn't take it. So I think he did feature against Mayo. I can't remember if he featured against Kerry, though. I don't know if he featured against Kerry in the final.
I don't think he featured. Yeah, no, Jack did come on against Kerry.
He did come on, yeah,
100%. Because I remember Kerry fouling him repeatedly. Anytime he got the ball and tried to sprint, his jersey was being pulled, and they were stopping him from running full pace, which is, fair enough. It's a tactic, and you don't want to exactly let Jack McCaffrey run straight at your defence. But I mean, watch the game again. Every time Jack gets the ball, he's fouled. But they brought him on kind of in the 10 minutes into the second half. But look, Desi will do the same thing. I think he'll do the same thing with James McCarthy. He'll do the same thing with players like Mick Fitzsimons, that he won't put them in for 70 minutes in games where he probably expects to win. I think he'll try keep them fresh, fit, ready to go, and then really, really go for it when it gets to the quarterfinal stages. I think he'll try time it just like he did last year. I think Dublin will try and make it to the quarterfinals and then go for it from there. And if Dublin are still at the quarterfinal stage, I think we'll see an entirely different team to the one that we've seen up to that point. And I know that's a replica of last year, but I think Desi's thinking, this is Last Dance 2.0 nearly. It would be a shame if Dublin were to lose this and you could have had the perfect picture storybook ending last year and instead, lose in the semi-final this year or something like that. We don't want that to happen. So hopefully Desi gets it right.
Yeah, and maybe on that, obviously, as we've said before, in terms of players who won't be there next year, you're not going to have Ryan Baskell, you're not going to have Davy Byrne. Ryan Baskell didn't feature in the All-Ireland final, didn't really feature that much for Dublin in the championship anyway, so probably won't be that big of a miss. You've got Davy Byrne, who obviously was a regular starter for consistent parts of the championship, in fairness, and I do think he will be a miss for Dublin. But you've still got James McCarthy coming back, Paul Mannion, Jack McCaffrey, Con O'Callaghan, Kieran Kilkenny. You're still going to have all the bulk of those key core players who got Dublin over the line last year. And looking at the likes of McCarthy, maybe Cluxton if he does come back, Mick Fitzsimons, McCaffrey, Mannion. Like if it would have maybe felt, maybe Mannion and McCaffrey probably aren't at the age profile to be retiring or anything like that, but it would have felt like the perfect sort of send off for the likes of McCarthy, the likes of Fitzsimons, maybe Cluxton as well. So why do you think they are coming back? Because if it did feel like the perfect ending in many ways, and you almost maybe thought like Desi might call it as well, because he's done. He obviously won that first All Ireland in 2020. He was tasked with a big overhaul of getting them back after what happened in 22 and 21, and he did it. So almost maybe for him it would have been the perfect time to step away. So why do you think all these lads are coming back? They must feel like they can win it again, surely.
They must, and I think it's to go for 10. Like James McCarthy pretty much said that. Like he was at that charity game down in Shelburne and he was playing, and I think he pretty much said that, didn't he? Someone said something about 10 and he said, oh, you'd be mad not to go for it. So that's what this is about. But I think you are right. I think there's just a little part of me that was just like, no, that's a really good time to go. You've proven that you're the best. You've proved that you're the best team of this era. Because remember what I was saying to you, it's as if you had a boxing champion who'd cleaned out their division. They'd beaten every single top contender that was in the division, and then they go away for a couple of years. They go into a bit of a career break, and a new champion comes out of nowhere and starts smoking everybody else, and the old champion comes back to the sport and beats the new champion. That's what last year somewhat felt like with the Dublin team. It's like they came back and beat the Kerry team that were fancied to beat them in that All-Ireland final. That was going to be like the passing of the torch from that Dublin team to this Kerry team. And Dublin proved like, no, we are the best of this era. And it would have been a cool way to be like, no, you can only win when we leave. That type of thing. And instead, we're rolling the dice one more time for 10. And Kerry could well catch us this year. Like it's more likely that Kerry catches this year than last year, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Like as I would have said in my 2024 predictions video a couple of weeks ago, like I feel like Kerry and even Derry to a certain extent do have another gear to go up on. I think Galway do as well, to be fair. Armagh, Mayo, I think all these counties have a gear to go up on. And not that there isn't going to be improvement from Dublin. Maybe there might be younger players who come in and make an impact, or maybe, players last year like Kieran Kilkenny didn't have, the best of years by his standards, from previous years. Con O'Callaghan at times was relatively quiet in terms of scoring. So maybe those two players like really kick on this year, and that elevates Dublin even further. That way? Maybe Costello is even better than he was last season, for example. So I think there is the possibility that Dublin can improve and can get better. I just think that when you do look at the overall age profile, like there is, when you look at what Dublin gave last year, I think it will be very similar to what Dublin gave this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I do think that, like, if you look at it last year, the only thing I worry about when you're talking about, what if Costello gets better, what if Pascal gets better, is that lads like that have stepped up in 2021, 2022 and been our main players. We still had to go back to Mannion, McCaffrey and Cluxton to get us over the line in 2023. So what tells you that it's going to be enough in 2024? I don't know. Look, are they world class? They genuinely are. Costello, I think, is fantastic. Pascal, when he hits form, is fantastic. Like in the Mayo game, he looked untouchable. Comerford's a brilliant goalkeeper, but we're talking about lads that are coming in to replace players who are part of the best Gaelic football team on the men's side of all time. You can't argue with that. 6 All-Irelands in a row. That's unheard of. No one had ever done 5, let alone 6. And you're coming in to try and replace those lads. You're not going to be as good a team as that. Percentage, like probability speaking, you're not going to be as good as the greatest team of all time. So that gives the likes of Kerry, Mayo, Galway, who were close enough to them during that period, particularly Mayo and Kerry, were very close to them during that period, who can think, okay, well, if if McCarthy is not as good as he used to be, if Cluxton goes, that could be the 1%, 2% difference that we need. And look, 2022, Kerry beat Dublin. Kerry beat Dublin, and it was because Cluxton, McCaffrey, Mannion, Con O'Callaghan, they weren't there. And I said, when I highlighted for my prediction for the All-Ireland final last year, I said that I think that Mannion, McCaffrey, Con, and Cluxton, I think they're worth 2-point swing. Kerry won by 1 point. I said, I think Dublin will win by something similar in the All-Ireland final because I think those 4 players make a big difference. And they did. And like this year, it's like if those same couple of players are to be gone in the next 2 years, surely Kerry will sniff that opportunity and take it. Especially when you think that like the absolute horrible year that the Cliffords went through, like in their personal, like everything that they went through, God help them. For them to still turn up and have, you know, somewhat good games in the final, it speaks to the character of both of them. Like Clifford, David's pass set up Paul Ganey's goal. Paddy Clifford came up with some big scores in the second half. Like, it is genuinely fantastic how they carried on through that. And next year, maybe, you know, they might be able to express themselves a bit better. I know that that's it, but like the Kerry camp might be more determined than ever this year to come back and win the All-Ireland title. I expect that they will be.
Yeah, no, Kerry are 100% definitely going to be in the conversation. No shadow of a doubt. I'm sure Derry are going to be in the conversation as well, and some of the other sides you mentioned. I suppose there will be rotation in the league, though. Like there's absolutely no doubt about that. I think Desi, you know, he done that in 22. He's done that last year as well. There's going to be a big amount of rotation, I'd imagine, in the league, especially at the early part of the league. I think the more the league goes on, the more you will start to see some of Dublin's more senior and better players come in. But what's your take on Dublin's approach to the league, and how do you think Desi will approach it? Like, I suppose when we look through pre-season, it's obviously not a barometer, but you've had a few players in there like Luke Swan and Brian O'Leary, I think, have impressed. Have they impressed enough to come into the Dublin team on a consistent basis? I don't know, but how do you think Dublin will approach the league this year?
I think our main target in the league should be to try and get Theo Clancy some minutes at fullback. Try and get him into the team because he looks like he's born to play fullback for Dublin. Midfield, try and find a midfield partner for Brian Fenton. A nailed down solid midfield partner to Brian Fenton. Is it going to be Tom Lahiff? Is it going to be Patrick O'Coffey-Byrne? Is it going to be Adam Waddick from Thomas Davis? Like, pick one. Is it going to be like Killian McGuinness from Skerry's Harps? He really impressed me during the club championship as well. We need to pick one of these guys and go, okay, that's our number 9. Like Dennis Bastick was, like Michael Darren McCauley was. Pick your 3 and go, okay, these are our midfielders, and let's go with these 3. Because that would give them more confidence. They'd be able to work better with Stephen Cluxton for kick-out plans and everything like that, and they'd know each other better, and the tactics would work better between them. Now, other thing that we need to work on is, over the league, no confusion. Don't confuse us. If Cluxton's coming back, tell us. If he's not coming back, don't keep us in the dark. If he's coming back, tell us. If he's not coming back, tell us, so we can pay our respects to one of the greatest footballers of all time and one of the greatest people to ever pull on the blue jersey that we've ever seen. So, tell us so that it doesn't hang over Dublin season like it did in 2021. And we can move forward with that into the league, get Theo Clancy nailed in at fullback, get more minutes into the likes of Darren Newcombe, Cian Murphy, Owen Merchant at cornerback, so that we're ready to go for the championship in 2024 and get the midfield partner nailed down. Forward line, we're good. It's unfortunate for Brian O'Leary. It's unfortunate for Luke Swan because they are brilliant prospects for the future for Dublin. No doubt about it. But our 6 forwards, I think, going into championship, if I had to call it, it'll be 6 of Bugler, Kilkenny, O'Callaghan, Mannion, Costello, Pascal, Niall Scully. Like, that's not going to change in 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll just run through some comments here. Gaelic says Dublin versus Derry League final with Monaghan and Kerry 1 or 2 points behind. Yeah, it could happen. What's your favourite jersey from last season? Says JD's World of Football. I did a video on this actually, on all the best kits and worst kits. I think my favourite kit, I think, was this I think it was the Roscommon jersey. I think was actually my favourite kit. I said at the time I didn't like the Dublin jersey. Having saw that jersey now be a part of an All-Ireland winning team, I'm inclined to maybe put it up a bit. But this year's Dublin jersey, though, I will say, looks really nice. I wasn't a big fan of the kind of navy stripes on the jersey, sort of on the sleeves. But what was your favourite jersey from last year?
I always liked the Wexford one. I always liked the purple and gold. I think that's Sligo is always a favourite of mine. Just the black, it's just classic. Don't think you can go wrong with a down jersey as well. Red and black is hell of a colour combination to be able to go with. Monaghan's one last year was lovely. On top of that as well. Not a fan of the new sponsor on this year's jersey. The orange kind of looks a bit out of place on the blue and white, but their jersey last year was a peach.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, there was some good jerseys. All right, the Offaly one was very good. Even the Limerick one I thought was pretty nice. Farney Fan TV says there's a perception that Dubs think everywhere other than Limerick and Cork Galway are the sticks, that we're all cold cheese and that you turn your heads up at us, and that's why everyone likes to gang up and give you a stick. It's true. I mean, there's probably many people in Dublin who probably think Limerick, Cork and Galway are the sticks as well. So but then again, I have family from Westmeath, and anytime I go down there, they think, us Dubs are hooligans and robbing cars and all this crack and everything. Do you get what I mean? So it works. It does work both ways. In fairness, Denise says, who do you think, Robbie Henley or Colin Reap, will be better in goals for the championship? That's a tough one, really. I mean,
Colin Reap for me.
Probably Colin Reap, I'd say. Yeah, I think he had the better season last year. I think Gavin says, I think if Dublin and Kerry were taken out of provinces, play the best of three or an aggregate instead, it would help Leinster and Munster be competitive and enjoyable to watch again. Yeah. I mean, I don't think anyone would be against multiple games of Dublin and Kerry, in fairness. Looking at Dublin's fixture list then for the league, so it's Monaghan at home first up, Mayo away, Roscommon home, Kerry home, Derry away, Galway away, and Tyrone at home. So, you're looking at those home games there, in particular Monaghan, Roscommon, Tyrone. I know Roscommon drew with us last year in the championship. I know Monaghan have a good record against us in the league. And, Tyrone at the end of the league is usually when they seem to be at their best nowadays. And Kerry at home, will be tough, but I think Kerry will be absolutely, chomping at the bit there, considering we beat them in the All-Ireland final. But, you look at those other three home games, you win them, and you pick up something else on the road, you're safe. Because I think really, mid-table from a Dublin perspective is probably what I'd expect or hope for. Not in a relegation battle, probably, be thereabouts maybe and getting into a league final, but I think probably somewhere around the middle is where I could see Dublin finish. What do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think if I was to put it out now, I think I'd put Dublin number 4 or number 5 when the league is finished. I don't think we'll be, terrified of certain, fixtures, but I do think that we'll be safe this time. I think we'll make it a priority to stay in the division, and that should do the job.
Gavin says home. Yeah, I mean, Croke Park is
home.
It's kind of our home, isn't it?
I mean, realistically, if you play all your games there.
Yeah, I mean, what else can you do? Parnell Park's just not big enough, unfortunately.
But that's it. Anyone saying that, visit Parnell Park, go to a game. It's not big enough to hold Dublin's championship games. It wouldn't be safe to hold Dublin championship games there. Genuinely wouldn't. And if you're saying, oh, well, tickets, trust me, more people would turn up and try to find ways into the stadium. Wouldn't be safe to host it there. The infrastructure isn't there to hold championship games there. So now you have a choice. And look, have the GA manage this situation? Great. No, not really. We're in a position now where you either build a new stadium for Dublin or You you either build a new stadium for them or you let them continue playing in Croke Park. Both options are going to draw criticism. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
Do I think it's unfair that Dublin play in Croke Park all the time? Yeah. It is. It does leave them more experience, but to go to the level that Glen Ryan is going to, talking about the music and all, nah.
Yeah.
Don't particularly agree with that. But Dublin have way more experience with the pitch, which does give Dublin an advantage. You cannot argue with that.
Yeah, like I think you really need to be focused on getting out of Division 2 and beating Sligo and everything else before you can, really start.
You know what I was thinking? One place that would be perfect for Dublin to put the ground. Say that the GA was going to make Dublin have another ground. Santry Stadium.
Yeah.
Morton Stadium. Like there's a motorway exit at Santry which takes you, and there's a motorway exit at Santry and a motorway exit at Ballymun, which would take you right to Northwood, which you could go in. There's hotels in Northwood, so you could stay the night there. There's gourmet food parlor, which is unreal. There's so many nice restaurants and cafes and everything around there. And then you have the infrastructure for a stadium right there. Now, I know that there's sports clubs and I know that DCU own those grounds, but Dublin have a really good relationship with DCU. If you put a GA pitch in the middle of the running track there, you could have something potentially work there. And the infrastructure is there, and the motorway exits would make it possible for people to travel up to the game without too much hassle. I think it's something for the GA to consider. But again, you already know if the GA announced Dublin are getting a new stadium, I don't think people would say, oh, well, at least they're not playing in Croke Park anymore. I think people would criticise it for money towards Dublin.
Yeah, no, there definitely would be some uproar. In fairness, looking ahead to the championship, then I mean, obviously that's where that's the main focus for Dublin. Like at the end of the day, we don't look back and remember league titles and everything else. As Dublin fans, probably in a similar breath to Kerry, maybe Mayo fans to a certain extent as well. They obviously want to win the big one just as much as us. So yeah, looking at the All Ireland championship, then what's the I suppose is it plain and simple the goal is to win the All Ireland again? I think that should be the goal, to be fair. But how I mean, it's a long time away, and obviously we'll know a lot more when the league is done and everything else. But in terms of the championship, what are you expecting to see from a Dublin perspective when the championship does come around?
The goal is to win the All Ireland. That's why Cluxton could be staying on. That's why Mannion McCaffrey, James McCarthy, Desi Farrell, that's why they're staying on. They're not staying on to, get to a semi-final and do a rebuild. I don't think Desi Farrell will be in the job in 3-4 years. So then the question is, well, then why would he be trying to do a rebuild? This is to try and win the All Ireland again. Make no mistake about it. This is to try and win the All Ireland again. So that's going to be the goal, and I think we absolutely are capable of doing it. I think it's between 4 teams, and I don't want to, rule anybody out or say it, but at this early stage, I'm going to keep an open mind when I see the league, and there are teams like Tyrone, Monaghan, Mayo, Roscommon, Cork even. I'm looking at them like a dark horse, they're making big strides. There are teams that are making strides in the championship and could impact how it all goes. Armagh as well are one of them. But if you had to push me now and say, who's the All-Ireland coming from? I'd say it's going to come from one of 4. I think it's going to come from either Dublin, Kerry, Derry or Galway. I think one of those 4 is going to be All-Ireland champions come August. We'll see. But I think the goal easily is All-Ireland. And if Dublin don't get that, they won't be happy with the year.
And we know Kerry are going to improve. We know Derry are going to be better under Mickey Hart, possibly, than they were in previous years, especially in the All Ireland series. As you said, Galway are surely going to make improvements. I'm sure Mayo are going to look to come back stronger. From a Dublin perspective, what improvements do you think Dublin can make to take them over the line against a Kerry, which I think one thing that scares me a little bit from a Kerry perspective is the fact that a lot of their players now are going to have they would have had a rest from not that much club championships. And I do think there was, like, Sean O'Shea last year, for example, wasn't as good as he was in 2022. David Clifford was Footballer of the Year, fair enough, like, had an absolutely outrageous year. But again, he missed a few chances in the final he normally scores. So, there was a bit of sort of, a bit of a bit of abnormality really in that All-Ireland final. So what do you think Dublin can do to take them over the line and get them towards the Sam Magor? Can they do anything different, or is it a case of, same as last year?
No, that's it. That's why I'm nervous, because I looked at it and I really felt like Dublin are giving everything they have left to get over the line in this All-Ireland final. And I think Kieran Kilkenny's form is something that wasn't that good last year that maybe could be improved on in 2024. That, like, if he can get back to his best or get back close to his best, he'll be straight back in the team and making a big impact, because there were a few games he didn't start last year and he was playing at a level that is way below what he's capable of. Like, it is scary, because you do look and you say, yep, Shawnee was not his best. David Clifford definitely was not his best in the All-Ireland final, and Dublin still barely got over the line. And at one point, Kerry looked like they were going to win before the Paddy Small goal. Like, Kerry looked like I was really convinced Kerry were going to win before the Paddy Small goal. So it's one of those things that you look at it and you think, how can we actually, trump what we did last year? What stone hasn't been turned yet? What haven't we tried? I don't know. Genuinely, I don't know. And it's like one of those things that, is what we did last year good enough to go and win it again this year? I don't know. Theo Clancy could be the answer. I genuinely mean, like, Theo Clancy, I really, really, really think highly of this guy. I think looks like he's born to play fullback for Dublin. He's an exceptional footballer for Kilmacud Crokes, and he just is, a prototype for a fullback. I think Dublin need to put him there in the league, and if they can build a solid defence around Theo Clancy and John Small at 6, maybe put McCarthy at 5, McCaffrey at 7, Lee Gannon and Owen Merchant in the corners, or Michael Fitzsimons, that's a hell of a defence. You got Cluxton in goal there, Fenton, and then find a midfield partner for Fenton. That's the next thing as well. Those are the steps forward that you can take. Find a solid midfield partner for Brian Fenton and stick with him. Theo Clancy at fullback. That's a way that I think we can progress from last season.
Yeah, I think Theo Clancy will be a great addition, in fairness. And I think the fact that Crokes have gone so far in the last couple of years has probably meant he hasn't got as much game time in the league for Dublin. And it's probably one of them where, can you risk him in big championship games? Maybe you can't, because he hasn't necessarily played in big championship games for Dublin. I know he has for Crokes. But maybe with the fact that Crokes have been, and obviously he's been playing with the under-20s as well, to be fair, like, he's still a young player, like, so yeah, I think definitely, hopefully bringing him in the league would be a great addition, in fairness. What key players then do you think will be most important for Dublin then this year?
Fenton, Brian Fenton again at midfield at number 8, always vital. Stephen Cluxton will be vital if he's in goal or whoever replaces him, because Cluxton's kickouts and his general presence in the team is massive. In the forwards, I think then Mannion, Sean Bugler really impressed me up until obviously he got injured. Mannion, Con, Pascal, Costello, like, they're all vital. Kieran Kilkenny, if he can get back to his best, is huge. Brian Howard is massive for Dublin as well. I don't think people give Brian Howard the credit for just how good he is. He is fantastic. They're all important, but if I was to say, like, a Mount Rushmore, shall we do that? A Mount Rushmore, the 4 key players. I think it's Cluxton. The 4 players that are going to decide whether Dublin win the All-Ireland, in my opinion. Cluxton, Fenton, Conor O'Callaghan, and James McCarthy.
Yeah, I think I'd
Paul
probably...
Mannion should be in there. Jack McCaffrey should be like...
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, I was going to say maybe Paul Mannion for Con, but that's just because Con, like, I suppose Con's role maybe has changed.
Con's role has changed a lot.
Yeah, like he's not, and Kieran Kilkenny maybe like could have a huge year as well because he probably wasn't at the pace. Although I thought he had a fairly good final. In fairness, but there we go. Suppose we'll discuss the Dublin hurlers before we finish up. Just looking at the league for Dublin in Division 1B. So in there with Tipperary, Limerick, Westmeath, Galway, and Antrim. I mean, the hurling league is very underwhelming, I think. Not just like from a Dublin perspective, but I think in general, like because like when you actually look at both leagues here, like you've got a clear side, who's going to be in the relegation zone. Like you've got Antrim, who's probably going to go down from 1B. You've got Offaly, who's probably going to go down from 1A. It's very predictable, and I think it means that the big teams can rest even more because there's less jeopardy. And the fact that the championship is so intense as well, especially for Munster teams. But anything you'd be looking to see from Dublin in the league, like Micheál Donoghue's second season, maybe there's a case that, like with the fact that so many of the better teams rest players and rotate, like maybe there's an opportunity for Dublin to go on a bit of a run in the league and maybe go far and maybe scrape a semi-final or final. Like, what do you reckon?
I think Dublin will probably go about the league the same way that the big teams are going about the league. I don't think Dublin will put everything into it. Like the league is in trouble in terms like the Allianz League for hurling because teams aren't taking it seriously. And like I think what happened with Waterford was probably the worst thing ever that could have happened to the Allianz Hurling League because when Waterford capitulated in the championship, when they were fully expected to be Limerick's main challenger for the All-Ireland, everybody pointed the finger squarely at the league and said
even Limerick last year as well were a little bit slow out the blocks.
Slow out the blocks. I honestly think that Limerick will not take the league seriously this year. Not a chance, because I think that they will have it in the back of their minds. Like, let's not, get carried away here with the league. We know what the real important one is. I think they'll give players like Colin Coughlin, other kind of backup players like Cathal O'Neill and Sean O'Brien and Richie English. I think they'll give them a lot of time in the league to try and, kick their tires to see if they're ready for the road ahead of them. And then on top of that, I think Tip will probably go for it. I agree with your opinion. Liam Cahill loves getting his hands on silverware. I think Cahill will probably go for that. Because the Tipperary camp doesn't seem the happiest. Alan Flynn's comments that came out about, he's not picking players from Kilruan, or sorry, was it Killadangan? It was one of them. I always mix the two of them up. But that can't be a happy camp if there's comments flying around like that. So I think Cahill will be desperate to get his hands on some silverware with Tip to show something for it. So yeah, look, I don't think the league will be taken too seriously by a lot of people. And I think there is an opportunity there for Dublin to do well. So yeah, I'd be fairly confident that we can do pretty well. But it's just, again, when it comes to championship, look, the reality is since 2013, Dublin haven't looked like a threat, I don't think, for the All-Ireland.
No.
I think, is that fair to say? Dublin looked like a real dark horse for the All-Ireland in 2013, which sounds bizarre to say now. But we really were. We played Cork in a cracker of a semi-final. We won the Leinster title by beating Kilkenny and Galway and Wexford. We won against all three and went and won the Leinster title. And then we played Cork in the semi-final and we're really unlucky on the day, I thought. Ryan O'Dwyer's red card, the timing that the goal came for Cork from Seamus Hannity, just key moments went against us. Look, Cork were the better team on the day and deserved to go through, but that felt like a really big missed opportunity, and we haven't got back to that level since. And it's felt like, watching Dublin since then, it's felt like we've gone one step forward, one step back.
Yeah.
We lose a player, we get a player, if that makes sense. We lose Paul Ryan, we find Donald Burke. We lose Stephen Heine, we find Liam Rush at centre back. We lose Liam Rush, we find Conor Burke. Like things like that we seem to get a player, lose a player, and more or less stay at the same level continuously. And I don't know, would you agree with that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, we've had a few that have come back here and there. Like Donald Burke's come back, Danny Sutcliffe has been in now, Liam Rush has been in now at different times. Like it's been inconsistent at the best of times, especially with the Dublin hurlers. Like, and I suppose it is maybe one of them things where it's not as an attractive proposition as playing for the footballers, for example. So I think it is probably hard to keep lads committing and everything else, and changes and managers and everything else. But could you see many new players coming in that you think could make a significant impact? Like you watched a lot of the club championship games. I watched a good bit of them as well, but you were actually at most of them, in fairness. So do you think any players that you look at from maybe Nafina, Crokes, or anything like that you think could come into the Dublin side and maybe be a player that could kick us on to the next level?
AJ Murphy for me from the Fina. I really, really like him. Very fast, very skillful, great finisher. He's definitely one to watch. Sean Curry as well is one that I think deserves more minutes in the Dublin team. Sean Gallagher from Naomh Barogue played wing back in the Walsh Cup against Westmeath. There scored, I think it was 4 points from play. Looked really, really impressive at left half back. I think he could get some minutes in the Dublin half-back line this year. I have one bold shout, a really bold shout, but I watched the club championship and I was hugely impressed with Owen O'Donnell at full forward. He is an absolute bulldozer. He's like a JCB. Like the minute he gets the ball, you need 2 or 3 lads to go to him, or else he's going to get past whoever he's on. The only guy who I think could kind of step up to O'Donnell in terms of physicality would probably be someone like a Hugh Lawler. It's genuinely like O'Donnell is just unbelievably strong and quick. And what happens is the football, you're right, it's just such an attractive proposition that like the 2 biggest prospects Dublin have had in hurling in the last few years have been Luke Swan and Lee Gannon. And both of them have picked football. And like that's not a new trait. Like Cormac Costello, Kieran Kilkenny, Eric Lowndes. How many amazing hurlers have we seen that chose the football?
Con and Dermot as well.
What?
Con and Dermot Connolly as well.
Con and Dermot Connolly as well. And like even then, like hurlers that weren't necessarily starting for the footballers, like Tomas Brady and stuff, jumped ship mid-career and went to the footballers. Like it's been a common issue for the Dublin hurling team. And look, going in again, it's happened again. It's not even for someone who was on the Dublin team. Brian Sheehy played fullback for Kilmacud Crokes in the Dublin Hurling Championship in 2021 and 2022. And me and Luke immediately highlighted him and said, this guy is an absolute animal at fullback for Kilmacud Crokes and could be a fullback for Dublin, and we could move Owen O'Donnell out so that he could have more influence on the game further out the pitch, which I think we should. I genuinely think if I could wave a magic wand, I'd put Brian Sheehy at fullback and Owen O'Donnell at full forward.
Do you think he has the pace to play a full forward?
Owen? Oh, he does. I've seen him there in the club championship. He was brilliant. He scored 2 goals against Kilmacud Crokes, but basically his first 2 touches. Like he genuinely watch his goals against Kilmacud Crokes. It's just a pure powerhouse running at the Crokes defense. And look, maybe that was because Whitehall were giving him the ball all the time and they were giving him all the service he could have asked for. Like full forwards in Dublin have struggled with the service, like your Ronan Hayeses and everything like that. They have struggled with the service coming into them. So maybe it wouldn't work, but it's worth giving it a shot in the league.
Yeah,
it's worth giving it a shot in the league. Come on, at least once, please go with a forward line where we have Keane O'Sullivan, Owen O'Donnell, and AJ Murphy inside, or Alex Considine. Go with that, and then go with a half forward line of like Dara Purcell, Donald Burke, and Danny Sutcliffe, or Paul Crummy. Go with that and see how that works. Go Chris Crummy and Mark Grogan or Dara Purcell at midfield. And then go halfbacks. I go Dara Gray, Conor Burke, and either John Bellew or Sean Gallagher. Or Shane Barrett from the Fina, actually. Really impressive as well. And then fullbacks, if Keane O'Callaghan is around, try get him to come back. Brian Sheehy and James Madden from Ballyboden, with then Eddie Gibbons in goal, I'd say. That would be my team for the year.
Yeah, no, I think so. Yeah, and I think Dublin have missed a real focal point inside their full forward line in terms of like someone who can feel the
McLean,
ball,
Rush,
catch high
Clonakilty.
balls. Yeah, like we need someone inside there who's going to be able to do a bit of the dirty work in many ways, and then free up your other two forwards as well. And if Owen can be that man, absolutely, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't go and do that. In fairness. But looking to the championship, then I mean, like just looking at it here in the championship, like you've got in Leinster, Antrim, Carlow, Galway, Kilkenny, Wexford. Like I feel like we're kind of repeating ourselves a little bit every year when we discuss Dublin in the Leinster championship. It's like I think Galway, Kilkenny, 1 and 2, whatever order you want to put them in, they'll both probably be in the Leinster final. Wexford have been very weird in the last couple of years. Like last year they beat Kilkenny but lost to Westmeath. I don't understand how that happens. And then we beat them, I think, as well. We actually have a good record against them recently, but like I feel like our best case is to just go all out and try to get to a Leinster final, because at least if we get to a Leinster final, and like to be fair, we've shown we can be competitive with Galway ever so slightly. Kilkenny just always beat us, and that's just how it's going to be. But like if we can get to a Leinster final, then we might get excited about something. But like if we finish, even if we finish in third, we go into that Joe McDonagh playoff, which we'll probably beat them, you'd imagine, and then we'll play, the third best team in Munster and get beat, and it's just same again. So I feel like best case scenario, just try go out there and get to a Leinster final at least.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's the way forward. I don't think we're getting past whoever comes out third in Munster. Like, I really don't think we are. So I think whoever comes out of the Munster final on the wrong side of the result, I don't think we're getting past them. So, like, let's go out there and try get to a Leinster final, because then, we're back in the provincial decider, and, the capital can get excited about it. Micheál Donoghue, second year at the helm. It'd be a good stamp on his CV as well to get Dublin to a Leinster final. And, like, you could draw a bit of a crowd to that. You could promote the hell out of that, get the fans to go, build a bit of a buzz around Dublin hurling, and then maybe future prospects might commit to the hurling, especially if they don't get minutes in the Dublin team. We were discussing the likes of Luke Swan, that maybe we don't think he will get a lot of minutes with the footballers in 2024. So why not try and entice him then to come to the hurlers? Like that type of thing is a real possibility for Dublin now. And if you get to a Leinster final, if you get to a showpiece where there's a cup on the line, there's a trophy on the line, that's way more attractive a proposition for our talented players to come and play for Dublin hurling.
Yeah, like I think I agree as well. Like I think Dublin should try absolutely everything to get to the final, but it's just one of them things where realistically, if we're looking at it, like we're not better than Galway or Kilkenny. So it's just one of them. If we can catch them on the hop, if we can catch Galway on the hop, like I think we might be away to Galway this year. So like if we can go there and upset the odds and beat them, and then obviously do enough against your Antrim and your Carlow, like we drew with Antrim last year. Let's not forget that as well. And even Carlow gave us a couple of problems, I remember, in that playoff game before the quarterfinals. So like, yeah, and then obviously hopefully going out and beating Wexford, but you're just hoping like we can catch Galway or Kilkenny on the hop, which Galway maybe, Kilkenny I don't think so. It does feel like wishful thinking really, because when you actually look at the bulk of Galway squad, Kilkenny squad, the players they have coming through, the club players, the underage, like it beats us all day long. And you can actually argue that Kilkenny and Galway are progressing and getting better year on year, whereas we're very stagnant,
Yeah, like I think the gap is probably bigger between Kilkenny and Dublin than it's bigger now than it was in 2014, 2015. Probably is. And look, Kilkenny and Galway were in the All-Ireland final in 2015. So they're falling from, what they were. So Kilkenny haven't won an All-Ireland title since 2015. So it is big. Galway haven't been in the final since 2018. So like things have fallen for both those counties as well. So they're going to be desperate to rebuild it. It's going to be very difficult for Dublin to catch them this year. Galway will have revenge on their mind for that crazy Leinster hurling final last year with Killian Buckley scoring a goal in the last puck of the game to win the game. Look, I think Dublin could get out of Leinster again. And if I had to put money on it, I'd say it's going to be a toss-up between ourselves and Wexford for who gets that third spot. And Wexford are under new management, Keith Rossiter. You know, I like how they're moving so far. They have a lot of talent coming through, the likes of Keane Byrne, Ross Banville. Like, Wexford could be a lot better this year. It's going to be difficult, isn't it? Like, it's going to be pretty hard to confidently say that we're going to finish third. I think it's going to be a toss-up between Kilkenny and Galway for who wins Leinster, and a toss-up between ourselves and Wexford for who comes third. And Antrim could even be in there. Like, Antrim are getting better year on year. And if we have to go up and play Antrim, I don't know the fixtures off by heart, but if we have to go up and play Antrim up in the hills there, like, be a difficult out game to come back from with the points.
Yeah, no, it definitely will be. Like, I think if I had to predict Dublin's season, you'd probably go third in another quarter-final defeat. But you would hope, best case scenario, we get to the Leinster final, because at least then, like, it means we'll play a weaker team. We'll still probably play one of the Munster teams in a quarter-final anyway, even if we lose the Leinster final. But I just think it's better than playing the Munster final runners.
Well, let's get to a showpiece event.
Absolutely. There we go. I suppose before we finish up, your All Ireland picks for football and hurling
at this stage.
I've been asking every guest on the season preview. So.
At this stage of the year, God, I can't wait to see this now in 11 months at the end of the year show. Have all the bloopers of the year.
Remember to come back.
All four codes. Saying men's football, Kerry, LGFA, Dublin, Camogie, Cork, and hurling, Limerick. So only one change. I think Kerry will win the men's football this year. But look, wouldn't exactly put my life on it. There's a lot that can change over the next couple of months.
Yeah, like, I feel like the Limerick one I'll be most confident in. Football, between, it could be a toss-up. Ladies football, like, Kerry are going to be coming back stronger. Meath, obviously, with new management, they're definitely going to be in the conversation. And Camogie, obviously, Cork obviously won it last year, but Kilkenny and Galway could be there as well. In fairness, surprise package in football and hurling, who would you go for? Team to cause an upset or shock along the way or anything like that?
Tyrone. Everybody's writing them off. Everybody's ignoring them. Like, if there's anything that could put a fire under Brian Dooher and Fergal Logan, it's Mickey Hart going to Derry. So, I mean, they still have the bulk of the team that won that All Ireland are still there. I know Ronan McNamee's gone. I know Maddie Donnelly's injured. Niall Sludden's gone. But they still have Darren McCurry, the Canavan brothers, Cathal McShane, Kieran McGeary, Conor Myler, Con Kilpatrick, Brian Kennedy, Paddy Hamsey, Niall Morgan. It's a very good Tyrone team. And I think, like, don't write them off completely. They had a terrible performance last year in the quarterfinal against Kerry. But that's not as good as they can be. So, dark horses, I probably say Tyrone. They could be the surprise package. Meath and Cork are good shouts as well. Meath, obviously, Tailteann Cup champions, making progress under Colin O'Rourke. Cian McBride is back from the AFL. Like, that's huge. Like, you saw impacts that Conor McKenna and Conor Glass had when they came back from the AFL in years gone by. Could Cian McBride be that for Meath? Time will tell. Cork are on the rise as well. Like, the amount of, young prospects coming from Cork is insane. The likes of David Buckley, Cathal O'Mahony, Blake Murphy, like, these guys are just full of talent, and very interesting to see how they get on. But if you had to say surprise packages in a team that nobody's talking about and nobody's giving them a chance, that I think actually still have a chance, is Tyrone. Like, before 2021, no one was really saying Tyrone were going to win the All-Ireland, and they did. So, like, who's to say that they can't surprise somebody along the way this time? On top of that, for the hurling surprise package, surprise package for the hurling, Cork. I know that Cork were talked about a lot for how great they were against Limerick in that game, and they were fantastic. They hit 130. The match, you said, they had something like a 70-something% shot accuracy, and still lost, which like shows how good Limerick are. But I think Cork are actually really dangerous, and I think like if you look at it on paper and say they went out in the provincials, but I think if Cork get out of Munster, I think they're really dangerous, because the one thing that Cork have is pace. Cork have blinding pace. Jack O'Connor, Shane Kingston, like these guys can, absolutely turn the jets on and get away from any defense in the country, and they can rip them apart. So I think they're really dangerous. Cork for me, potential surprise package as an All-Ireland contender in the hurling, and Tyrone for the football. It's like as a dark horse.
Yeah, no, I'm expecting a big year for Cork as well. I think Cork could really cause a lot of surprises. It was mad because there was almost more, and I remember speaking to Matthew about this, there was almost more positivity around Cork last year than there was in 2021 when they lost an All-Ireland final to Limerick, even though last year they didn't even get out of Munster. But it is one of them things where it was the first time in a while in a championship game where they really
it was because that All-Ireland final they got destroyed,
hammered, yeah.
And they got shown just how far away from Limerick they were, whereas last year they were right there. In Pat Ryan's first year, by the way.
Yeah, no, it was, and it was very good. Like, in fairness, and they do have a good bulk of underage players coming through. Tomo says, Galway for me for football. Shane says men's football, Kerry, I hope. Ladies football, Kerry, I hope. Camogie, Cork, hurling. Limerick Gaelic guy says, even as an Armagh fan, I think Tyrone are a bit overhyped. Shane says Donegal will make the semi-final. In my opinion, they're dark horses. And Gaelic guy also says Monaghan, surprise package, Armagh, dark horses. There we go. Yeah,
my thing is to clarify dark horses. Can I do this? Is that nobody's talking about them. Donegal are being talked about because Jim McGuinness has come back, and I do think Donegal will be a threat. Derry are being talked about because of their performance last year, Mickey Hart. Galway are being talked about. Tyrone aren't. And that's kind of why I've said that that's the ultimate dark horse for me, is that nobody seems to be talking about the team that won the All-Ireland 3 years ago.
Yeah, I think Tyrone might have a bit of a underwhelming year, to be honest with you. Like, I just think all the players who aren't making themselves available, players opting out, younger players apparently not making themselves available, from their under 20 side, a couple of years ago. It just seems to be a bit of disharmony there between the players and management. I do agree, though. I think when you look at their starting 15,
if they get it right,
if
they get it right, they have a hell of a panel.
Yeah. Like, their starting 15 is very good, and once they get going, like, it was one of the reasons why we both predicted Tyrone to be Kerry in that quarterfinal last year. Like, I have a sneaky feeling they'll probably have an underwhelming year or an underwhelming league, and then in Ulster, I think they play Cavan and then Monaghan, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go and knock out a Derry or a Donegal or something like that. Just throw an absolute cat amongst the pigeons and just completely upset the complete dynamic and balance of the championship. But it could be very interesting, in fairness. But I think we'll go ahead and wrap this up here. Seamus, thank you very much for coming on. Make sure to check out On Cluiche when you all get a chance. Hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Share this out to your friends and family, and we'll speak to you all soon.